Hey guys, what's going on? It is Ash here coming at you today in Brawl Stars, and I've got my man Ark on the channel to help us out for some Terra tips. Ark, how you doing, man? Welcome to the channel.
Well, thanks a lot, man. Good to be here. I'm looking forward to doing this, man. Let's do it.
Me too. Let's do it. I mean, Terra is a mythic brawler. I've always been a huge fan of Terra, and you're here to share your top 5 pro tips for using Terra. You are a top player. You're one of the best YouTubers. You've never said that to me, but every other YouTuber and player that I talk to says that you and maybe Coach Corey are in like an upper echelon, and other Ash, of course, as well, of YouTubers right now, content creators in the game. So I'll make sure I link. Everybody should check out Ark's YouTube channel. That will be in the show notes below. But Ark, tell us.
Make you blush.
Oh, it's true, man. You're a beast, and to be honest with you, I really noticed that you're great with Terra. So that's why I thought I'd ask you on to talk about Terra tips. Give us maybe a little bit of an overview about Terra, who actually was one of the, probably not the first brawler added to the game, but one in the early crop there. I think it was over a year ago she was added to the game.
Yeah, it was. I think you were there for the Brawl Talk when they added her. Yeah, Tara's like you said, a mythic brawler, so she's not the easiest to unlock. Funnily enough, I actually unlocked her back to back with Mortis, which is like crazy unlikely. But yeah, in terms of like her health, she's a pretty like medium level brawler. She's got the same health, to put it in perspective, as like Leon, as Penny, as Jessie. She's not overly tanky, but she's not overly squidgy either, really. And pretty versatile. She's got one of the most unique supers in the game. In the sense that she can really just like turn a game on its head and just kind of come in super clutch. So it's really fun to play with her in like gem grab, especially, where you can just kind of like absolutely just save the game for your team. In Brawl Ball especially, she's really strong in Brawl Ball. And in those like earlier trophy stages, pretty good in Showdown as well. I would suggest never touching her in Heist. just don't go there. But she's okay in Bounty. There's a couple of maps where you can maybe get away with using her in the lower trophy ranges, but it depends. Like for the higher end, kind of like really competitive games, just stick to Brawl Ball and Gem Grab, I would say.
Brawl Ball and Gem Grab, my least in favorite game modes, right back to back. So I'll stick with her on Gem Grab personally. So she has an attack, the triple Terra. She has the super is gravity, and her star power is black portal. Let's just get right into the tips, Ark. Give us tip number 1 for Terra.
Yeah, so tip number 1 for me, straight off the bat, is do not use... Oh, no, sorry. My number 1 tip to start with, probably, it would be, like, having patience. Like, for me, patience with this brawler is, like, the most important quality for you to have as a player. Because Tara can be... just a really strong like assassin, or a really strong aggressor, and kind of like when you have your super, having that patience to decide when the opportune moment is to use it is something that you'll quickly realize is super important. You don't want to use your super against one brawler unless you're playing like Brawl Ball and it's like a specific play to allow a Mortis to score, for example. You want to really save it for 2 and ideally 3 brawlers all at once.
Okay, so she has a super, again, the gravity super, that you are really, so you're totally cool with just sitting on a super. I feel like almost a nervous anxiety, right? When I got my super, where am I going to use it? You know, I'm always looking out. But you really preach patience on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. With this brawler in particular, this is a brawler that you kind of really want to make the most out of your super. And ideally, when you are using it, try to ensure that you've got at least 2 or 3 shots ready to roll, because you can really back-to-back your super that way. If you use your super and you've got like 1 shot ready, you've already exacerbated the other 2, then you're not going to really kind of get much value from gathering those brawlers together. You get 1 shot and then you kind of maybe get halfway there again, but nothing too extravagant. So like having like at least 2 shots, ideally having all 3, and you will absolutely capitalize when you do use your super, for sure.
That's great advice. How about tip number 2, Ark?
All right, tip number 2 for me is like know your role. So with Tara, like I say, she's a great assassin. She's also a great aggressor, and it's knowing how to behave in each of those kind of roles, as it were. So when you're trying to earn your super, there's no harm in showing yourself, being like sort of in the middle of the map and kind of showing your presence. But as soon as you get your super, you kind of want to be a little bit sneaky, because especially like I said in Gem Grab, for example, like having that ability to kind of like have the other team forget that you're that you're there is so key. You want the gem carrier on the opposing team to actually forget that you're there with the super, because they'll make sort of stupid plays. They'll kind of be making themselves vulnerable to you, and if you're in the right kind of positioning, knowing your position on the map's really important too, I'd say. And you kind of use tip number 1 in terms of having patience. Combining those two things together is where you'll really start to shine using Tara.
Awesome. I really like that description as far as what her role actually is. If you were to compare her with one other brawler, what would you compare it to in terms of the play style? Obviously, her super is incredibly unique. You can't compare it to anybody. But maybe like a Leon or something, as far as the habits you want to have, or
potentially
no?
like a similar to Leon. Yeah, I think it's the thing with Tara, to be honest, is that she's very hard to compare to anyone, and that's actually kind of one of the reasons why I like her so much. She's a very unique brawler in the game. I mean, there's various other brawlers, like I think Colt Super has that kind of like that piercing effect, but I don't think there's many brawlers that have a primary attack that kind of has that piercing damage, and that's why I like Tara so much, because you can really capitalize on that. And I'll get more into that with some more tips.
I think the next tip might touch a little bit on that. So why don't we hop right into it, right? What's tip number 3?
Straight in. That's a nice little lead. The next tip I would say is line up your targets. That to me is a really important thing to be bearing in mind using Tara, because like the more that you are aware of your positioning on the map and trying to line up your shots to not only hit just like one brawler, but ideally 2, sometimes even 3. It kind of makes you think in a different way with this particular brawler to others, because you really are trying to find the perfect angle to make as many of those shots hit, because the more shots you hit, the quicker you build up your super, and then you can start to cycle, and that's when things get really interesting.
Yeah, and like walk us through a sample match. Maybe let's just go with gem grab, because that's one of her strengths. What are you doing like right off the bat? Like you're Tara, you're probably going to be on on the sides. What are you doing? What are you looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it greatly depends on the map. So for something like Stonefort, you tend to find in the meta that you'll probably be running against a team that have got like maybe 2 tanks, like a Primo and a Frank and a Poco as a gem carrier. So on that particular map, I would say you want to keep your distance and just kind of be using chip damage against the tanks to kind of build your super. Okay. There's very little that tanks can do against Tara if you're very much aware of your opponents in that respect. If it's more like an open map, again, similar kind of strategy, but you might want to be more entitled to try to flank your opponent if it's like a squidgier brawler like a Barley or someone like that. If it's like maybe Deep Siege, for example. Deep Siege is kind of a very attractive map to throwers, and Tara's very strong against throwers, so it's important to know the brawlers that Tara is good against and the brawlers that Tara is bad against, and kind of adapting your playstyle accordingly.
And what is one example of a brawler that Tara is bad against? Like a range?
Yeah, range. I think Spike and Nita. And Nita's actually not got that much range, but she's got a very strong, hard-hitting close attack, and a relatively high health in comparison. So it's like, it just depends on many things. Like I say, position,
the map and stuff, and position. Yeah.
Map and the bushes play a massive difference to all those things. So when you get to the top, in terms of trophy pushing, you start to see similar comps and kind of similar brawlers. I would say that there's only really, in my opinion, like 5 that are viable if you're really trying to push at that top range. So you kind of know before you go into a map what you're likely to see at the top range of trophies. In the lower stages, it's kind of much more random. So you never know what you're gonna get.
Yep, for sure. All right, well, that was a good one. Let's go on to the next one.
Yeah, so for me, number 4 would be like to know your range. Like, it's really important in Brawl Stars, just as a general tip to anyone out there that's new to the game, is to really understand like your range and other brawlers' ranges. It allows you to kind of establish in your mind this kind of safe zone that that as long as you're in that safe zone, you can hit your shots and your opponent can't hit theirs. And similarly, maybe if you're against a Brock who's got a larger range, you want to be more aware of your positioning and trying to kind of like cut him off with corners and walls and that kind of thing to kind of close the gap, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's tough without going into map specifics, but with Tara, are you spending a lot of time in the bushes in a normal match? Like, are you trying to be stealthy?
Yeah, I would say that it depends on your playstyle first and foremost. I would say, like, don't try to necessarily change your playstyle. Play what you're most comfortable playing. For me personally, though, I would say that as a generalization, Tara is strongest when she's like in her assassin phase. Using the bushes with any brawler is an advantage, but I think particularly with Tara, especially if you've got your super, because it just allows the opposing team to forget that you've got your super. It's very similar to Leon in that respect. What I've said for the longest time is, for me, the best counter to any brawler is not another brawler. It's actually your team's awareness, and having awareness to what's happening on the playing field. You know, if you're with a team that are really clued up and paying attention to Tara, I would say, especially in Gem Grab, all the pros are very consciously aware to look out for the moment that Tara has her super. And if they're in like a VC on Discord, they'll definitely kind of like communicate
call that out. Yeah,
absolutely. And similar with Leon, like when Leon first came out, I felt like he got a nerf too soon. It actually didn't allow for the community to adapt to Leon. And again, the thing that was a big thing with Leon for me was actually just being aware when he has his super, so that you can just kind of prepare yourselves for that.
Yeah, and it speaks volumes as to the power of her super if you're putting it in the same sentence as Leon, how game-changing it can be. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So what's the last tip you have for us, Ark?
Last tip is, do not use auto fire. Like for me, like there are some brawlers which kind of are favored towards this, and I would always probably advise to try never to use auto fire if you can. I mean, there are some circumstances where it is handy. One of those being, for me, I often find when I'm using a Piper super and I'm kind of jumping to a different part of the map, sometimes you might find a brawler comes out of the bush that you're not expecting, and you need to kind of like panic fire, and you're at a decent range. That's kind of a good example of when I would say to use it. Maybe if you're playing Bull or Primo, it's kind of a viable option. But with Tara, you really don't want to be using auto fire. Again, going back to my previous tip, with kind of lining up your targets, it's super important that you're being very selective on the angle that you're trying to connect your shots with, because the more brawlers that you can line up during that process, the quicker you'll get your super, the quicker your cycle, and the better your chances of getting a win in the game.
Yeah, I absolutely love that advice, and I've been as a point. Even my viewers sometimes are like, Ash, use auto fire, dude. Because I've been trying to like force myself not to use it, just to get in the habit of kind of, like you said, lining up shots and being better at predicting, you know, even though sometimes it might actually be advantageous to do so.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
It really greatly depends upon like you as a player, and on like a personal level, what you're trying to get out of the game.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to be like, you know, really competitive from the get-go, it's a really good thing to get into good habits early on. And it might seem like a kind of like a more difficult approach, but it will pay off in the long run as you kind of adapt to it and get used to it. But like I said, I wouldn't lie. I use auto fire sometimes with Bull quite frequently. I've tried to kind of stay clear of it with Primo now, and I'm getting much better results because I'm kind of like leading my shots almost with Primo in like a close range kind of way. It's really interesting. But there's nothing wrong with auto fire by any means. I think it's got its place in the game. I'm not one of those top players that kind of like really sneered down.
Yeah, sure.
A lot of the community really hate it, especially when it comes to kind of like competitive esports plays. They feel like it really kind of like lowers the skill gap. But for me, I think it's got its place. But I would just say with this particular brawler, you're going to get far more bang for your buck if you're kind of being a manual shooter, for sure.
Yeah, that's great advice. And again, I don't really look down on it either. I just do it for my own personal, to get better, you know. But because I think that if you lean on it too much, you'll have that tendency to struggle, especially when you go to the more mid and long range brawlers. But that's just my take on it. But
yeah,
anyway,
absolutely. I mean, sometimes if you're really close to like a squidgy brawler, then I have been known to use it, to be fair, because it just depends upon if you're really standing on top of someone or not. But just always bearing in mind that, you know, if you want to get the most value, always try to line up your shots and then don't use auto fire.
Absolutely. Well, hey, Ark, that was some great tips. I think that Tara is one of the most fun brawlers to play personally, so I'm really excited that we started with her in terms of my 5 tip videos, and you were a great guest. I'd love to have you back on in the future, and all my subscribers should definitely check out Ark's YouTube channel again, guys. This video is concluding, so be sure to go ahead and check out the show notes right now and check out his channel. Ark, anything that we should know about you, your channel, anything else before we let you go, man?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me on the channel, bro. I've really loved it, and like I've aspired to your content for many years now, so it's a real kind of like one off the bucket list for me to be.
Oh shucks, dude! Stop it, man! Stop it.
For me, like, yeah, I've kind of recently rebranded my channel, ironically doing a top 5 kind of concept around my videos, because I felt like that was a really important thing to kind of share in the game, because this game is very much kind of aimed towards different brawlers shining on different maps, on different game modes. So I wanted to kind of like focus on that as my concept, and I've just got together 10 of the top players in the world to kind of contribute to that.
Wow.
On a weekly basis. So yeah, it's a really exciting time. I'm just super happy. I've just come back from Finland from the launch.
Yeah, dude, congrats.
And it was just amazing. It was like one of the best life experiences to kind of meet the team, and I'm still kind of getting over that, really. But,
dude, they're awesome people, and it's really cool that you had that opportunity.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to seeing you there, bro. It was kind of upset me when I realized that you weren't going to be there.
I was upset too, but it is what it is, man. But, you know, it's really, again, it's cool that you had that opportunity, and we'll look for big things coming from you and your channel, dude. So thanks again for coming on.
Anytime, man. Anytime.
All right, guys, that's going to do it. Hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did. Good luck with Tara out there. If you guys haven't unlocked her, at least now you'll have a video to go back once you do and check out. So, guys, huge shout out to Ark again and to Bren Chong, my YouTube partner. Check out his information in the description below. Thank you for watching all the way till the end. I appreciate it. And as always, take care, guys.